Hi everyone, how are you all? I hope all of you are fine and okay. In this video tutorial, I'll try to demonstrate how to use Dreamweaver and PHP to create a MySQL table, in MySQL community server instance. You can also use XAMPP MySQL, but in this video tutorial, I'll try to use MySQL community server instance, and we are going to establish the connection, and then we are going to create the table. Then we are going to check the table creation in MySQL Workbench. To follow this video tutorial exactly, you need to have Dreamweaver, or you can do this by using any other available IDEs. We are going to use XAMPP PHP here. We have installed XAMPP, and we are not going to use XAMPP MySQL, but we are going to use XAMPP PHP, and we are going to write our code in Dreamweaver IDE. We are going to establish the connection to MySQL community server instance, and then we are going to create a table there, and we will do this in 3 different ways. First, we are going to follow how to create a table using MySQLi class and by following object-oriented way. In our second step, we are going to show how to do this by using procedural way. In our third step, we are going to show how to do this using PDO code. PDO stands for PHP.object. To follow this video, you need to install MySQLi community server instance in your operating system, and you need to install XAMPP package. You need to know how to set up your IDEs to communicate XAMPP PHP and MySQL server instance community instance. So in the very beginning, you need to start XAMPP PHP, because you need to start XAMPP because PHP is dependent on a host server, and without the host server, PHP is not going to run successfully. So starting the starting XAMPP PHP right now, and starting the Apache server. Without the Apache server, PHP code is not going to run. You will not be able to see the preview within Dreamweaver. Let's start XAMPP right now. Here is our XAMPP. So starting the XAMPP control. Here we are using XAMPP control panel version 3.2.4. In your case, it might be higher than this. Starting the Apache server right now. Here we are using the default ports. In your case, it might be different. For HTTP, we are using port 80, and for HTTPS, we are using port 443. But we are not going to start MySQL here, because we are not going to use XAMPP MySQL. Instead of using XAMPP MySQL, we are going to connect it with MySQL8 community server instance. So let's start MySQL community server instance then, and we have installed also MySQL Workbench 8. In your case, it might be higher. So starting MySQL Workbench right now, so that we can check that our MySQL server is currently running and we can access server instance. Starting MySQL Workbench. So minimizing it right now. This is MySQL Workbench. We have 2 different server instances here. We have XAMPP PHP. We have binded with this IP. Our port is 3307. Here the local MySQL80 server instance. This is connected to port 3306. So starting this right now to check whether it is okay or not. Clicking on it right now. So as you can check, this is and you can use the users and privileges here. You can also use schemas, and you can see we have 3 different databases here in the system, and then a database named world, and another database is there. So we are going to use this database, and we are going to create tables. We are going to establish the connection, and then we are going to create table. You can see that 3 different tables are already existing there. A table name is city, then country, and then country language. So we are going to create our table here within this database. And we are going to use a manually created user, which is this test user, and this. If you go to the users and privileges, then you can see all available users, and we are going to use this specific user. If you don't know how to create a new user, then we have a tutorial video in our channel. You are welcome to check that. Here this user has a privilege, schema privileges to use that database. All permissions are here. So So you can see, so we are going to use this user and we are going to connect to that world database. Create our tables here in 3 different ways by using MySQLi object-oriented way, and then procedural way, and then video. Alright, let's start Dreamweaver then. Starting Dreamweaver 2020. Okay, in your case it might be higher than this. Okay, we are using Adobe Dreamweaver version 20.2. okay, and we have set up Dreamweaver to connect with PHP and MySQL. If you don't know how to set up the sites, then we have tutorial videos in our channel. You can check that to set up a Dreamweaver to communicate with PHP and to communicate with MySQL. And we are going to use here the Dreamweaver PHP folder, and we have done the setup earlier. Okay, and you can check that by watching other videos. And we have a folder named MySQL. Okay, so you can check the sites here by going to the sites and manage sites. Then you can go to, we are going to use this Dream MySQL. Okay, if you select this and if you double click this, then you can check we have a site name. Okay, Dream MySQL, and this is the local site folder. And you can check the servers. It is a testing server. If you double click it, then you can see we are connected it to local. This is local network. Okay, and this is the server folder. It is coming from the htdocs folder, and our URL this one. Okay, here we are not using localhost colon other ports. If you are not using the default ports for Apache XAMPP server, then it will be different, localhost and colon, and then your manual port number. We are using the default one, that's why we are not using localhost and colon. Okay, in your case it might be different if you are not using the default port, and this is the advanced one. Here we are not maintaining the synchronization, and we have checked automatically push files to testing server, and this is the server model PHP MySQL. So this is the setup, okay, that we are gonna use. Okay, let's start writing code. Here we are in Dreamweaver MySQL, and this is coming from this htdocs folder. Okay, here the htdocs in our F drive we have installed XAMPP. Then here is the htdocs folder, and there is a folder named Dream MySQL. Okay, and here another folder is there, and we're gonna write our code here. So let's create a table. Let's create a file here, PHP file, and let's check whether we are successfully connecting to Apache server. So creating new file, we can write create table. Okay, and then you can double click this. Okay, we are not going to, this is the split window right now, so let's use the split window. You can use the code or you can use the live one. Okay, let's use the split one. We are not going to use HTML code here. We are going to use only PHP code to create the table. And the very first procedure is how to use the MySQLi class and how to create a table using object-oriented way. Okay, you can use 3 different ways. You can use MySQLi object-oriented way, or you can use MySQLi procedural way if you are interested to connect PHP to MySQL server instances. Okay, it might be XAMPP PHP server instance, or it might be a MySQL80 community server instance. Okay, or it can be any MySQL if you're interested to connect it to with different databases like SQL Server or other things. Then you can use the third way, the PDO way. Okay, let's try to demonstrate the first way. Here our focus is to create a table. Our focus is to establish the connection and then create a table to check it whether the table creation is successful or not. Okay, so let's check right now. The PHP code is running, PHP, and then we're gonna check there, echo. Okay, creating table in MySQL 8.0. okay, server instance. Okay, let's check. PHP is running. As soon as you are going to save it, you will see the preview panel is showing creating table in MySQL8 server instance. That means PHP is running successfully and our connection is okay. And this is coming from the htdocs folder, the Dream MySQL folder, and then there is another folder named MySQL, and within that folder we have predefined. We're not going to use the split window, okay, or you can use the split window. We are going to establish the connection with the MySQL80 community server instance. We are going to establish the connection and we check that whether the connection is successful or not. This is our first step. Let's do that. PHP and then starting code block and ending code block, and then here we are going to create a few variables so that we can store the values, and then we are going to establish the connections. Whenever you are going to connect MySQL server instance, then if you are using PHP, you can create a few variables to store the details, okay, so that you can use those variables later. So so we are going to create 4 variables here. The first one is server name. And that is, it's a string, okay, and we are going to use localhost, okay, localhost. And in our operating system we are using multiple MySQL server instance, that's why we have to mention the specific port as well. But in your case, if you are going to use the XAMPP MySQL and if you are using the root user, then you don't have to use the colon, okay, you don't have to change the port. If you are only using XAMPP MySQL, then you don't have to use this code, okay, but in our case we are using various MySQL server instance, that's why, and those server instances are using different ports, that's why we have to specify port here. Our port is 3306. We are not connecting with XAMPP MySQL, we are connecting to a local instance, MySQL8 local instance, okay, and you can see here it is connected to localhost 3306. That is our first variable. We are going to use MySQLi class and we are going to use the object-oriented way. Let's create other 3 variables. The second one is username. If you are using XAMPP MySQL, then you can use the root user or you can use other users, okay, but in our case we are using a specific user, and this user is this test user, okay. Connecting to this one, and you can see if you go to administrator and then users, and then we are going to use this specific user, okay. We are not going to use the root user. This specific user has the privilege to connect it to any server, that's why it is %sign, so it can connect to any host. So let's try to use that. Okay, here we are going to use guest users, okay, and that is a string also, and here you can use the user pass, okay. In our case the password is same. One thing to notice here, that if you are using XAMPP MySQL, then you can use the root here as username, and you can use a pass. The root user has no pass, so it will be empty, and here it will not be, you don't have to use this extra thing, okay, you can use the only localhost. The 4th variable is database name, okay. Here in our case we are going to use the database world. You can see if you go to schemas, we are going to use this world database, but if you are using XAMPP MySQL, you can use the test database or PHP myadmin database, okay, and here the database name will be world. So these are our first 4 variables, and we have stored the values here. The very first step, to communicate with MySQL, you have to establish the connection first. Our first step is to create the connection. Create connection. We're going to create the connection and we're going to save that connection to a variable. Creating a variable, we are going to use the MySQLi class. We are going to pass a few parameters, these parameters, and then we are going to create the connection, and we're going to store that connection to a specific variable, and that variable is to create the connection. We're going to use MySQLi class and we're going to create a new instance, okay, and you can pass 6 different parameters. So let's check what type of parameters you can pass there. Okay, you can see object-oriented way, you can pass 6 different parameters here. The first one is the host, the second one is the username, the third one is the user password, and the fourth one is the database name, and the fifth one is the port number, sixth one is the socket one. Okay, out of these 6 parameters or arguments, 5 of them are in strings. Okay, you can see the strings, and one of them is integer, literal, or any number. Create the connection, and we are going to store that in a connection variable. According to your requirement, you can use any variable here. Now creating a new instance of MySQLi class, MySQLi. It's a method. It is the constructor of MySQLi class, and you can use 6 different parameters here, passing the parameters. Okay, the first parameter is the host name. So host name can be either a host name or an IP address, and if you are going to pass the null value or the string localhost to this parameter, the localhost is assumed, and according to PHP documentation, when possible, pipes will be used instead of the TCP IP protocol. Prepending host by port opens a persistent connection, and the second parameter is the username. Okay, and we are going to pass, we have saved the username in our username variable, so we are going to use that. Third one is the password, and we have used the same password, okay, as username. And the fourth parameter is the database name. Okay, and we are not using the other 2 parameters here. Okay, and you can check, and you can see that there is no error here. And you can use the 5th parameter and the 6th parameter. The 5th parameter is the port. It specifies by using the port number you can attempt to connect to MySQL server, and you can specify also the socket or named pipe, and that if it is required. And in our case, we are passing only 4 arguments or parameters here. So this is the MySQLi class, and we are creating an instance of that class by using the MySQLi constructor. Okay, we are passing 4 parameters out of 6 different parameters, and you have to understand that these parameters are in their specific order. Okay, you cannot mix it, so you have to remember the first one is server name, the second one is username, the third one is the user password, and the fourth one is database name. Let's check whether this connection is successful or not, and to check that, we are going to use the conditional statement, which is if, and we are going to check the connection first, and then by accessing it has a property which is connect error. You can see as soon as you are going to access this property, you will see the 2 properties are there, which is connect error and connect error number. Okay, so we are going to check this property, connect error, and if there is an error, if there is an error, then it will return true. If there is no error, then it will return null value, and null value is specified as it is false. Okay, if it is false, then it is code here that we are going to write, it is not going to be executed, so it will skip this one. Okay, but if there is an error, it will go inside, okay, and it will run our specific code here. So this connection has a built-in property which is connect error, and another property is there which is also connect error number. So if there is an error, then we want the connection to be closed. Okay, and there is a specific method to do this, that is die, and this is a method, okay, that we are gonna call. Okay, and here we are gonna see 2 properties. Okay, the first one is error number. Let's access the connection first. Okay, and then we are going to access this property connect error. You can see this connect error, we want to access it first, then we are going to access another property which is error. Okay, connect error. We want to print a little bit more here, and we want to print here connect error. Okay, connect error, and we want to print the error number here, and we are concatenating it. Here we want to do another thing, and if there is no error, then we want to write additional code here. You can use the else block. If the connection is successful, then you can print also one thing here. The MySQL80 connection is okay, connected to MySQL80 server instance. We are using a conditional statement, which is if this connection has several properties. Okay, out of those properties we are using a specific one, which is connect error. If there is an error, then instantly we are calling the die method, which is also exiting from the connection, and it is going to close the connection. If there is an error, if it is returning the true value, then it will go inside and it will call this method. We want to see like error number, and we want to see the error. This is our code. If there is no error, then the connect error will return null. Okay, if it is returning null, then this statement, this boolean expression will be false, and if it is false, then it is going to go to the else block, and it is going to execute this code. That means that our connection is successful. Here let's save it, and you can see connected to MySQL80 server instance. Okay, and this is all together because we didn't use a break here. So let's use a break first. You can use a break first. You can see instead of split view, we are going to go to the code view. This part is all about checking connection. Okay, this part is all about checking connection. Okay, this is the second part. We are going to create the query that we are going to run. Create query. We are going to save the query in a variable, a PHP variable, so that we can pass that variable whenever we are going to use this connection and a different method. The method name is query, and within that query method we are going to pass this query. Saving the query in a variable right now. So creating the query, you can write SQL query. You can write all your code in string literals. Okay, so using the string literals, and we are going to write all our code here. You can do this here, or you can write this code in MySQL Workbench first to check whether your query is correct or not. So let's create the query. I'm writing the query right now. The syntax is create table. The name of the table would be customer, but here we are going to use object-oriented way. Let's write doing here using MySQLi object-oriented way. You need to understand that out of three different ways, we are using the first way. We are using the MySQLi object-oriented way. You can see the create table. Okay, and that's why the customer, according to your requirement, you can give any name here. So here giving customer, and it can be any name here. And okay, we are giving customer, and we are going to give additional things here, which is SQLi object oriented, because we are using that right now, so you can understand that all different ways are okay. And then starting opening and closing parentheses. Okay, and then here. Okay, so this is a simple syntax to create table. The first keyword is create, the second one is table, and then the name of the table. You can see, if you are interested to see the whole syntax, then you can see the whole. Here we have copied and we have pasted the full syntax of create table. Here you can see the syntax of create table. You can write the keyword create, and then you can write temporary and then table, and you can also write another code to check whether the table is existing or not. If not existing, okay, then the table name, and then you can do create definition, and then you can give table options and partition options, okay. And these are the things that you can do. You can do create table, if not exist, then table name, then create definition, then options, then partition options, then you can give more options there, ignore or replace as query expression. And this is the create definition. If you are going to use this create definition technique, then you can use this syntax. And this is the column definition. These are the data types, okay. Here the data types, you can use the key part, index type, index option, okay. Here these are available here, okay. And this is the whole syntax. This is the index option, check constant definition, okay, reference definition, okay, reference option, table options. These are the table options that you can use, okay. This is the whole syntax. If you are going to use the partition option, then this is the syntax for partition option, okay. Partition definition and subpartition definition, and here the query expression, okay. This is the whole syntax. You can see that here and get an understanding how to write the create table syntax. And this is the whole syntax, but we are not focusing the create table syntax here. We are here checking the SQL connection, and we are creating a simple table there using a simple query. We are not going to go to the details here right now. So in our future video we will discuss more about it. Let's create a simple table, and here the table name is customer SQLi, okay. And we are gonna create 5 different columns within this table, okay. Let's create the columns here. The first one is the ID, okay, and you can use, this is integer, we are limiting it, okay. And then it would be unsigned, okay, in SQL Server, okay. If you're familiar with other SQL servers, then you will understand that we can use identity columns, okay. And those identity columns will be auto incremented, okay. And here in MySQL you have to use the unsigned keyword, okay. This is not going to be null, so that's why not null. Here it will be auto increment, okay. We want it to be incremented automatically, okay. That's why I is specifying auto increment. And that's it. Or you can use additional things here as primary key, but we want it to be the primary column, primary key column, and we are gonna add that later, a little later. Let's create the columns first, then we are gonna discuss more about it, okay. The second one is first name. This is the second column name, and it is we are gonna use the data type here, and that data type is var character, and we are going to limit maximum 30 characters allowed, and we don't want it to be null, so that's why it is not null. And here the third column name is the last name. It is also var character. It is also 30, not null. The fourth one is the email, var character, okay, and limit is 50 up to 50 characters. It can be null, that's why we are not specifying it as not null, okay. This email is optional, that's why we are not using not null here, but we want a default value here, okay. The default value, if the user is not giving the email details, okay, whenever the data is inserted, then a default value should be here. And to do this, there is a keyword named default, okay, and we want it to be null. And the fifth column name is registration date. Okay, you can give this column names according to your requirement. Right now I'm keeping it simple, so this one is to be date and time. Here using the data type timestamp, and it is going to be not null. We don't want it to be null. Okay, that's why not null. And we want the default value there, and default value would be present date and time. So the default value, you have to use the default keyword here, then current timestamp. Okay, and there is a method current timestamp. By using that current timestamp method, you can insert system date and time. Okay, so current time stamp. Okay, you can write CURRENT current, then there is the underscore time STAMP timestamp, and it is a method. If the value is updated, then on update it is also taking the current timestamp. Okay, so that's why on update you can write here, you can copy this and you can paste it also here. Okay, and you can also close, minimize this, and here we are going to use a comma, and here we are going to use that we want the first column to be the primary column. That's why you have to add a primary key there. So primary key, okay, primary key, and we want the ID column to be the primary column. Okay, so that's it. That is the create table syntax. We are creating a table, and the table name is customer SQLi 00. We are gonna create 5 different columns. These are the column names: ID, first name, last name, email, and registration date. Here the ID would be, you are going to store integer values there, okay, numbers there, and up to, it is the identity one, that's why unsigned. That means it is going to store the number. Okay, and we don't want it to be null, that's why not null, and we want it to be auto incremented. Whenever you are going to insert data, we don't have to use this explicitly. Okay, it will be automatic. Okay, and you don't have to insert any number for this column. Okay, here the first name, we are using the data type, and this is var character, and we want the maximum limit is 30. Okay, you cannot insert more than 30 characters there, and we don't want it to be null, empty, and that's why it is not null. Okay, and the last name, it is also up to 30 characters, and it is, we are not going to accept null there, that's why not null. And this email, this is up to 50 characters, and we want it to be null, and if there is no value given, then automatically there will be a value, and that value is the null value. Okay, that's why it is default null. And the fifth column is the registration date, and it will be timestamp. Okay, and it is not null, and if no value is there, then it will be current timestamp will be there, and if it is updated, then also current timestamp. And we want the first column as the primary column, that's why primary key. Okay, so this is our syntax. This is the whole thing is a string literal. Okay, or you can do this, you can do this way. Okay, you can do this way also. So this is our query. Next step is, okay, here the next step is to execute the query. Okay, we have to execute. The query, and to execute the query, we are gonna use another conditional statement, which is if, and we are gonna if else block again. Okay, and then the else block, and we want to check if the query is successful, then it is going to show show the details here. that we are going to present here, and if it is a false one, if the query is not successful, then it is going to go to the else block and it is going to execute that code. Okay, so passing the connection here first. Okay, then it has a property which is query. You can see as soon as you are going to write Q, intelligence will show in Dreamweaver. There is a method, you can run multi-query, real query, okay, other things, and this is the that we are focusing on this query right now. Okay, so this is a method, and when this query is true, okay, using this strict equality operator, and we are going to check that it is when it is true, it is not going to be false, it is totally okay. And we are gonna add within this query is going to take parameters, and we are gonna pass this query. Okay, so passing the query right now, SQL query. Yes, that you need to see that we are using MySQLi object oriented way. Okay, so you need to be clear about this. If you are using a different way like procedural way or video, then you have to do this in a little different way, because a different method is there for the procedural way and a different method or property is there for video, and the code will be a little different compared to this one. Okay, so according to MySQLi object oriented way, you can use this. You can use the connection accesses method, which is query, and you can pass your query within this method. Okay, and you can check whether the query is true or false. Okay, if it is successful, then we want to print one thing, that we want to give a break first, and then we are going to concatenate, and then we are going to give table customer, and we are going to copy this and we are going to paste this here. It's created successfully. Okay, we want to print this one. If there is a problem, if it is returning false, then it is going to come to this else block and it is going to execute this one. Okay, and we want it to be like this one. We are going to use the break first. Okay, then we are going to concatenate, then we are going to use error table, error creating table. Okay, there is an error. Okay, so if table creation error, if there is an error to create the table, okay, then we are going to use the connection. Okay, then it has a property which is error property, error number, and error, you can print the error number also. Okay, error number, and then we are gonna use the error. Okay, and we are gonna use another concatenation there, and we are gonna use a bracket there. Okay, and we are gonna use another bracket here. So we are gonna print the error number first, and then we are gonna use the connection. If there is an error to create the table, then it is going to show that table creation error, and then connection error, error number, and then connection error. Let's check their connection, that whether it is okay or not. Clicking on save, and you can see the live window that creating table in MySQL 80 server instance connected to MySQL80 server instance. Table customer SQLi is created successfully. Okay, and you can check it by going to this, and you can refresh all, and then you can see there is a table name customer SQLi, and it is within the database, world database. Okay, and you can check this, and you can check this by a table inspector. Okay, here you can see the details, and here you can see the columns. Okay, ID column, first name, last name, email, and registration date. And here our spelling is not right, REG. Okay, we will correct that in a short while. Okay, and then you can see the data types. Okay, integer, unsigned, var character 30 up to 30, and timestamp, and the default value is current timestamp. Okay, so this is how you're going to create a table. Okay, let's go back to there, and we're in the code window, and let's fix the first one here. Just the REG. Okay, alright, so now you have to close the connection. Okay, now deleting the table again. Here you can easily drop it, and then you can refresh. So using MySQL Workbench, drop the tables effectively, efficiently by using MySQL Workbench. Okay, if you are going to work with MySQL Workbench, it will be I hope that it will be easier for you to check these details, and you can see, you can refresh again, and we don't have the table anymore, we don't have that table anymore. Okay, so we have corrected here. We have to close the connection. Okay, close connection. Okay, and here using the connection. Okay, connection, and then it has a property which is close method. Okay, here you can see this is the close method, and it will close the connection. So now you can check one more time, you can save it, and you can go back there. Okay, you can see the live window that yes, table customer SQLi is created successfully, and then you can check it one more time here. Here you can see it is okay. Our first part is done. Okay, we have created the table by using the object-oriented way. Now this is our step. Okay, now part 2. Okay, part 2, we are going to use procedural way. Okay, MySQLi procedural way. So procedural way. Okay, here we have to set the connection again. So here the connection would be using a new connection 2, giving it connection 2 or connection pro. Then here there is a class name. Okay, there is a method MySQLi connect. So MySQLi, then underscore, then connect. Okay, you can see this is showing this is MySQLi connect. Okay, so we are going to use this method, and we are going to pass the same 4 values. Okay, same 4 parameters here. Okay, the first one is server name, second one is username, okay, third one is user password, fourth parameter is database name. Okay, so this is the first part. Instead of using the MySQLi class, we are using a method which is MySQLi connect method, and we are gonna use 4 different parameters there. And this is the creating the connection. This is how you are going to create the connection, and then you can check whether connection is successful or not. We are copying and pasting it from here. Okay, checking connection, but this time we are not going to use the same thing. Instead of connection.error, here you have to pass a different thing which is not connection. Okay, connection pro. Okay, here instead of using the connect property, okay, connect error property, and for procedural, okay, we are gonna use connection pro. We are going to pass the connection only. Okay, if there is a problem with the connection, then it is going to return if it is not true. This connection pro is if it is not successful, that means not true. If it is not true, If connection is not successful, okay, then it is going to run the method, the same method, which is the die method. Connection, we are going to use different thing here. Okay, instead of connect error, we are going to use MySQLi, and then there is a connect error number. Okay, you can see connect error number. We are going to pin the connect error number here, and then here instead of this, calling MySQLi and then connect. Okay, here you can see there is a method which is connect error method. Okay, so we are gonna call that. Okay, here we are gonna call this MySQLi connect error method, and here we're gonna do error number, and here it is going to display the error. So let's check whether it is okay or not, and make sure we are refresh all. Let's drop it. Here you can give save. Okay, and you can see the live status connected to MySQL80 server instance. Okay, and here you can check, you can write one more thing here. It is procedural, and we are not saving it right now, we will save it a little later. Okay, so connection is successful. Now query. Okay, now query would be the same query, so copying the whole query from there, and pasting it here. Instead of object-oriented way, we are going to use the procedural way. Okay, procedural way, and here instead of the table name SQLio, here we are going to use SQL Pro procedural. Okay, so a table name, it will be a different table name. Okay, so the query is successful. We are going to use the procedural way. Okay, we want to save it. Now execute the query. Okay, now here we want to give the query a little different query, SQL query pro. Okay, we are going to bring the same thing here, execute the query. Instead of this, we are going to pass a different thing here. We are not using the connection here, we are using the connection pro, and you don't have to use the connection, you just directly call MySQLi. There is a query method. Okay, you can see the MySQLi query method, and we are gonna, within this query you can pass different arguments. Okay, we're gonna pass two different arguments here, and the first one is the connection, and our connection is connection pro. Okay, this is the procedural way, and the second one is query. Okay, and the query is SQL. We are going to pass the same query, SQL query pro. Okay, here query pro. Okay, and here the table name is the different, so copying it here and pasting it here. So this is a different table name. We are not going to check the error number. Okay, and here we are not going to check the errors because we are not using the connection here, using a different thing here. A different method is there, MySQLi, then error directly. You can see here is the error number and here is the error. Okay, so here is using the error number first, and we are passing the, and not using this, we are going to use this error. Okay, and we are going to pass the connection. To execute the query, there is a method named MySQL query. Okay, MySQLi query, and this query is going to take two different arguments. The first one is the connection and the second one is the query. Okay, we are going to use the connection pro, and we are using SQL query pro. Okay, if there is an error, then it is going to come to this else block, and it is going to show that table creation error. Okay, and you can use here SQL pro. Okay, and and if there is an error, then it is going to show table customer pro creation error, and it is going to show the error number and then the error. Finally, you can close the connection. Okay, and there is a method close the connection. Method is there, and then the method is MySQLi close method, and we are gonna pass the connection here. Connection pro. So this is it, how to close the connection, how to execute the query. Okay, now let's check. So before checking this, I want to make sure that we don't have the tables here right now, so drop it. Okay, refresh, we don't have anything here. Okay, saving it right now. Okay, and then you can see the live window, that creating table server instance. Okay, the first one, table customer MySQLi is created successfully, and table customer MySQL Pro is created successfully. Okay, and this is the procedural way, connected to server instance procedural way. And let's check. Okay, and you can also see the code window. So this is our first part, and this is our second part. So let's check it. So here you can see the customer MySQLi and customer MySQL, two different tables are there. Now you know how to create a brand new table using MySQLi object-oriented way and using MySQLi procedural way. In our third part, we are gonna show how to use the PDO. Okay, how to use the PHP data object and how to connect, and then how to create a table. So let's go to third part right now, and here it will be part 3, PDO. Okay, and PHP data, PHP PDO is the most popular way how we are connecting different database instances. Okay, so let's start this one right now. And whenever you are going to use PDO, you need to understand that all code should be within the try catch block. Okay, so starting a try block and then catch. Okay, we're gonna pass all code within the try block. If there is an error, then we are gonna catch that error within the catch block. Okay, and if there is an error, then we are gonna write PDO exception. Okay, you can see here IntelliSense is showing PDO exception. We are gonna use this that error. Okay, E error message. Okay, or you can write E only. Okay, so there is a class name PDO exception, and we are passing that error details here as an argument. And if there is an error, then we are gonna print the error details. Okay, so E, and then it has a property which is get message. Okay, and within the try block, we are going to create the connection first. Okay, so giving the connection, creating a connection variable which is connection PDO. Here we are not creating an instance of MySQLi class, and we are not calling that connect method. Instead of doing this, we are going to use the PDO class, and we are going to create an instance by calling the constructor of PDO. We are going to pass the variables using a little different way. Okay, not by directly. We are going to use the property name, and then we are going to set the value to those properties. Okay, and in this way we can do this. So the first one is the host name. Okay, and here in PDO it is MySQL host. You have to call the MySQL class, then MySQL class has a host, and we are gonna set that host to that. So this is a string, so using a double quote first and then writing MySQL. Okay, it has a host, and setting the host value to server name. One more thing, to separate those properties you have to use semicolon, and the next one is database name. Okay, and here we are gonna set here DB name. Okay, and the DB name would be the database name. first the server name and then the database name, and we are going to set the database name to the DB property, and we are setting the server name to the host property. Okay, this will be within the double quotes. Okay, then we are gonna pass the user name and user password. So this is creating the connection first. Now you have to check the connection. Okay, and one more thing. Okay, whenever you are going to use PDO, then you have to, if you are going to check it, then you have to check that using this way, calling the connection first, connection pro, PDO, set attributes. Okay, you can see set attribute. So using that set attribute method, calling the PDO class, and then accessing its attr error mode. Okay, you can find it here, that this error mode, attr error mode, its property, we are using another one. Okay, which is err. Okay, you can see error mode exception. So not the error number, just the message. Okay, so we are going to get the error mode and the exception. If you want to add more, then you can show us pass those as parameters or arguments within this set attribute. If this is how you are going to check the connection. Create the query or create query. You can use the same query here, the same query here, not SQL Pro. Instead of Pro, we are going to use PDO. Okay, and not SQL Pro table name. Okay, we are going to use PDO and not procedural way, using PDO way. Okay, PDO way. Okay, so we are using the same table, and here table name is different, which is PDO. We are saving that query within this variable. Okay, and it is not SQL query, it is not SQL Pro, it is PDO. All right. Okay, so here is the query. Now we have to execute the query. Okay, now here execute. So whenever you are going to use PDO, you should know that you don't have to use the condition just like earlier ways. Okay, here you can call directly, you can call the execute method. So you have to use the connection first. So we are using not connection, not PDO Pro, we are using a PDO. Okay, and then there is a property which is execute exact method. Okay, now we are passing query within this exact. Okay, execute method, passing that query, which is SQL query PDO. Alright, and here the name of the table is a little different. Okay, and here you don't have to use the else block, because if there is a problem, then all these code are all these things that you are going to write, this would be within the try block. If there is a problem, then it is going to go to the catch block, and it is going to go to that exceptions class, and it is going to get the message from that exception class. Okay, so you don't have to use the else block here. So executing the query, if there is a problem, it is going to go to the catch block. So here, if the query is successful, I just want to print one thing here, which is this one, the first one. You can give a break here, and then you can use table this is created successfully. Okay, and end the statement. And if there is a problem, it is going to go to the catch block. Now if you refresh, you will see that nothing is here. Those two tables are not here. Okay, so let's go back and you can save the changes. Okay, so save the changes and you can inspect to the live window. You can see creating table. This is what we are doing right now. The first one, table customer SQLi is created successfully, and then the second one is created successfully, and then the third one is created successfully. So let's go to Workbench and let's refresh, and you can see all these tables are here. Okay, and you can inspect also this table, and you can see these are here. You are welcome to watch other tutorial videos in our channel. If you don't understand anything, then comment box is down there. Please comment there. We will try to answer those. See you in the next tutorial video. Until then, take good care of yourself. Bye.